Hey everyone, welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast, where we take all those fascinating stories and really get into it.
Yeah.
So get ready, because today we're diving deep into the life and career of one of Hollywood's most captivating figures, Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, yeah, she's a fascinating person. And you know what always gets me about Scarlett Johansson is this sort of duality about her.
Oh, I love a good duality.
Yeah.
So tell me more.
Well, she's this quintessential New York City girl, born and raised among those skyscrapers. But then you look at her family heritage and
Yeah.
it paints like a more intricate picture. Her father's Scandinavian roots, they bring this kind of cool minimalist aesthetic, while her mother's side
Yeah.
carries the weight of Jewish heritage, a family who escaped hardship in Poland and Russia. So it's this blend of these cultural influences that makes her background so intriguing.
It's like she's this walking paradox.
Exactly.
Like this blend of kind of urban grit and old world elegance.
Yeah.
And speaking of elegance, her journey into the world of performing arts started pretty early, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Even as a child, she seemed to understand the power of performance on like a much deeper level
Wow.
than most kids do.
Yeah.
I came across this quote where she talked about how even at a young age, she recognized acting as a form of emotional manipulation.
Wow.
Using emotions to elicit a response from an audience.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like child's play for her.
Wow, that's some serious self-awareness for a kid.
Absolutely.
Do you think that early understanding of the craft,
Oh, yeah.
do you think that contributed to her seamless transition into more mature roles later on?
I think it's definitely possible. It's like she had this innate grasp of the psychological aspect of acting, which is essential for portraying complex characters.
Yeah.
And you can see this depth even in her early roles, from that off-Broadway play alongside Ethan Hawke at 9 years old,
Like, hold on, okay.
to working with legends like Robert Redford.
She was in an off-Broadway play with Ethan Hawke when she was 9.
9 years old.
Wow. Okay, starting strong.
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue.
Yeah, and working with legends like Robert Redford in The Horse Whisperer.
Yeah, okay, so she had a very impressive start.
Absolutely.
But 2003 really became her breakout year, wouldn't you say?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
That's when she starred in both Lost in Translation and Girl with the Pearl Earring.
Yes.
Two critically acclaimed films that really marked her transition to more adult roles.
Yeah.
Interestingly, both films explore these themes of isolation and connection,
Huh.
which seem to be a recurring element in her career.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so in Lost in Translation,
Yeah.
she was only 17 at the time,
I know.
playing a much older character.
Right.
That must have been a challenge.
It was, and not just because of the age difference.
Yeah.
The role required a certain level of emotional maturity and nuance, which she delivered beautifully.
Yeah, she was amazing in that film.
Oh, yeah.
But also that same year, she was on Broadway.
Yes.
And she won a Tony Award for A View from the Bridge,
That's right.
which is amazing.
It is.
Especially considering there was some debate about her taking roles from, stage veterans.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's a complex issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
On one hand, you have the argument that stage actors, should be given priority for stage roles. But then on the other hand, you have these talented actors like Scarlett Johansson who are drawn to the challenge and the artistry of theater.
Right, so it's like
Right.
these two worlds, and they sometimes collide.
Absolutely.
Speaking of collisions,
Uh-huh.
let's talk about her foray into the world of big-budget blockbusters,
Okay.
specifically the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
All right.
It's a far cry from the intimate world of independent films.
And yet she navigated that transition with incredible success.
She did.
Her portrayal of Black Widow, spanning multiple films from Iron Man 2 to her standalone film,
Yeah,
became iconic.
it really did. And it wasn't just about kicking butt in a skin-tight suit either.
No.
She really brought depth to that character,
Absolutely.
showcasing her strength, her intelligence, her vulnerability.
She actively shaped the Black Widow persona, pushing beyond that typical,
Right.
sexy portrayal of female superheroes.
Yeah.
It's like she was determined to make Black Widow a fully realized character, someone who could hold her own against any male superhero.
Yeah, and let's not forget the controversy surrounding the release of Black Widow.
Oh, right.
Her lawsuit against Disney
Right.
over its streaming release was a game changer for the industry.
It definitely sent shockwaves through Hollywood.
Yeah.
See, her contract, like many others at the time, was based on box office performance, guaranteeing bonuses for theatrical releases.
Right.
When Disney opted for a hybrid release, simultaneously streaming the film,
Yeah.
it undercut her potential earnings,
Yeah.
which led to the lawsuit.
So it was a bold move.
It was.
But ultimately highlighted the shifting landscape of talent contracts in the streaming era.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Now, before we
well-
move on to her other ventures, Okay.
I want to remind you to hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
That way you won't miss the next 2 parts of our deep dive
That's right.
into Scarlett Johansson. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.
There's so much more to explore.
We still have so much to explore.
Including her surprising foray into music, her public image as a sex symbol, and her personal life beyond the spotlight.
Oh yes, there's so much more to unpack.
So much more.
But we'll save that for later. Stay tuned, folks.
Yes, stay tuned. Welcome back to Tell Me More. We're continuing our deep dive into the life and career of Scarlett Johansson, and I think it's time we explore a side of her that often gets overshadowed by her acting prowess, her music.
Yeah, I have to admit, when I first heard that Scarlett Johansson had released music, I was a little surprised.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for actors to, dip their toes into other creative waters.
Right.
But you don't always expect them to, take it as seriously as she has.
It's true. She hasn't just dabbled. She's released 2 full studio albums.
Yeah.
The first, Anywhere I Lay My Head, is a collection of Tom Waits covers, which is an interesting choice to say the least.
It's definitely not your typical pop album, that's for sure.
No, it's not.
What was the reception like?
The critical response was definitely mixed.
Okay.
Some critics praised her for her unique and atmospheric take on Waits' music, describing her voice as alluring and eccentric.
Huh.
Others, however, were less impressed, criticizing her vocal abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It must be tough to face that kind of scrutiny, especially when you're already established in another field.
right.
But, there's something to be said for pursuing your passions, even if it means facing criticism.
Absolutely. It speaks to her willingness to take risks and explore different artistic avenues.
Yeah.
Her second album, Breakup, is a collaborative project with Pete Yorn, inspired by the music of Serge Gainsbourg. Again, not exactly mainstream choices.
It seems like she's drawn to music that's a bit offbeat, a bit unconventional.
Yeah.
Do you think that reflects a broader theme in her career? A desire to challenge expectations and push boundaries?
I think that's a very astute observation. It's like she's constantly seeking out new ways to express herself both artistically and personally.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another aspect of her public image that has been a source of both fascination and frustration for her, the label of sex symbol.
Oh, yeah. It's a label that's been attached to her for much of her career.
It has.
And it's understandable that she's expressed discomfort with it.
I agree.
It could be dehumanizing and reductive to be constantly objectified, even if it's meant as a compliment.
Exactly. She's acknowledged that she's flattered by the attention, but she's also been very vocal about wanting to be recognized for her talent and her work,
Yeah.
rather than just her looks.
It's a sentiment that resonates with many women in Hollywood and beyond who are tired of being judged primarily on their appearance.
Absolutely.
Do you think her choice of roles, often portraying complex and flawed women, is a way of pushing back against that image?
It's certainly possible. She seems to be drawn to characters who defy easy categorization, who are both strong and vulnerable, intelligent and impulsive. It's like she's trying to show the world that women are not one-dimensional beings. We contain multitudes.
Yeah, it's not just on screen that she's challenging those stereotypes.
Right.
She's also been a vocal advocate for gender equality and women's rights.
Absolutely. She's been a supporter of various organizations, including Planned Parenthood and the Time's Up movement. She's also spoken out about her own experiences with sexism and harassment in the industry.
Yeah, it takes courage to speak out against those injustices, especially in a system that often silences women.
Yeah, it does.
And speaking of courage, let's not forget her philanthropic work.
Oh, yes.
She's been a global ambassador for Oxfam for many years, working to combat poverty and inequality around the world.
Her work with Oxfam has taken her to some of the most impoverished regions of the world where she's witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of poverty and injustice. She's used her platform to raise awareness and advocate for change, which is truly commendable.
It's inspiring to see someone with her level of fame using their influence for good. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to make the world a better place regardless of our status or profession.
Well said.
Which brings us to another interesting aspect of her life, her personal relationships and her role as a mother.
Yeah, she's been pretty private about her personal life, but we do know that she's been married 3 times, most recently to Colin Jost from Saturday Night Live, and she has 2 young children.
Right.
It's understandable that she wants to protect her family from the intrusive glare of the spotlight.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about how her experiences as a wife and a mother might inform her work and her activism.
It's like all of these different aspects of her life, her career, her activism, her relationships, her motherhood, they're all interwoven,
They are.
shaping who she is as a person.
It's a reminder that none of us are just one thing. We are all complex, multifaceted individuals with a unique story to tell.
And what a story it is. But before we delve deeper into the complexities of her narrative, I want to remind our listeners to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the final part of our deep dive into the life and career of Scarlett Johansson.
That's right, we're just getting to the good part. Stay tuned for more insights and revelations.
Welcome back to Tell Me More for the final part of our deep dive into the life and career of Scarlett Johansson. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. We've uncovered so many fascinating layers to her story.
Yeah.
From her early beginnings in New York
Right.
to her global stardom,
Uh-huh.
her artistic ventures beyond acting, and her commitment to using her platform for good.
And yet I feel like we keep circling back to this one question.
Yeah.
How much has the media's portrayal of her, specifically the focus on her beauty,
Yeah.
influenced the way we perceive her work?
It's an important question, and I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah,
On one hand, you can't deny the impact of her physical presence.
right.
She's a stunning woman.
She is.
And that's something that's been celebrated and scrutinized
Right.
in equal measure throughout her career.
It's like this double-edged sword.
Exactly.
She's praised for her beauty, but then also criticized for being too sexy or for using her looks to get ahead.
Exactly, and it creates this almost impossible situation where she's damned if she does and damned if she doesn't.
Right.
If she embraces her sexuality, she's accused of being shallow or manipulative if she tries to downplay it.
Right.
She's accused of being ungrateful or inauthentic.
It's a frustrating paradox, and I think it speaks to a larger societal issue.
Yeah.
The way we tend to reduce women to their physical attributes, even though they've accomplished so much more.
Absolutely, and I think that's where Scarlett Johansson's story becomes particularly interesting because despite the constant focus on her beauty,
Yeah.
she's managed to carve out a career that's defined by so much more than just her looks.
She's consistently chosen roles that challenge her as an actress.
Yeah.
From playing a disillusioned wife in Lost in Translation to a seductive Ian in Under the Skin, she's won a Tony Award for her stage work.
Right.
She's explored her musical talents.
Yes.
And she's actively used her platform to speak out about issues that matter to her.
She's not just sitting back and letting others define her. She's actively shaping her own narrative.
Right?
And I think that's a powerful message.
It is.
Especially for young women who are bombarded with images and expectations that tell them their worth is tied to their appearance.
It's a reminder that you can be beautiful and talented, you can be strong and vulnerable,
Yeah.
you can embrace your sexuality and still be respected for your intelligence.
Absolutely.
You can be a wife and a mother and still pursue your passions.
You can be all of these things and more, and I think that's the legacy that Scarlett Johansson is creating.
Yeah.
A legacy that goes beyond the red carpets and the magazine covers and speaks to something much deeper, something much more meaningful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this thought.
Yeah.
Maybe the most radical act Scarlett Johansson has committed isn't any particular role she's played, or because she's championed.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's simply her refusal to be put in a box.
Her willingness to defy expectations,
Right?
to embrace her complexities, and to keep evolving as an artist and as a human being, that's what makes her story so compelling.
Well said. And on that note, we've reached the end of our journey into the world of Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
But hopefully this is just the beginning of your own exploration.
Keep questioning, keep digging deeper, and keep telling those stories.
Thank you for joining us on Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. Until next time, keep seeking those stories that inspire you, challenge you, and make you want to tell me more.